Jay here for Stretford, Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm not at Old Trafford. I'm in the studio and it's live. So get involved in the comments and the chat and give us a like and a subscription as well. Why not subscribe to the channel if you're not doing so already? A few bits and pieces to get through, so we'll move on. There's a Donny Debate story, which I'll get onto in a minute. It seems like Donny Debate's become the most spoken about player on the planet recently. Everyone's just banging on about Donny Debate, and it's a little bit odd considering how little he plays for Manchester United, how much we speak about him, even though I am speaking about him myself. So we'll get onto him in a minute. Also going to talk about penalty decisions as well. Not penalty decisions, penalties. Who's taking the penalties? Because obviously Bruno Fernandes missed against Aston Villa, and he's spoken about whether he's still going to be the penalty taker. Another little story that's come up here. I'm just going to start off with this one. I think this is from The Athletic. This is about the other night against Villarreal. And when Villarreal were warming up, the substitutes were warming up, Edinson Cavani decided to stretch between them in an effort to sort of put them off their warm-up. And this caused a bit of a kick-off with Unai Emery and the rest of the Villarreal staff. I just love that, mate. I love little things like that. I know it sounds a bit petty, but I'm all about that pettiness. And I just love Edinson Cavani. I thought when he came on the other night, he was fantastic. He was just chasing every loose ball, got the crowd going, and the Edinson Cavani chant is absolutely brilliant as well. No, I'm not. I'm in uni later, says asking Navin. Thanks. Yeah. Should we move on to Donny? Because already people in the chat are asking about Donny van de Beek and making comments about Donny van de Beek. Geeky Stuff says, I feel so sorry for Donny. Even. Adam Cox says, I will be happy when Ollie's sacked and Donny is on fire at his new club. Well, I won't be happy with any of those things. Right, so the latest with Donny van de Beek is that he's making a fresh attempt, according to reports, to make another effort to leave the club in January after being snubbed again by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer against Villarreal. I think we had this in the news yesterday about, it's a hammered a point home, but I'm sure you've all seen the clip of Donny not looking happy when he realised he wasn't going to come on against Villarreal in the Champions League. I think he sort of threw his bib down or whatever, and he just looked a little bit miffed, and a few of the players were sort of giving him a pat on the back and saying, don't worry about it, sort of thing. And there's an article, I think it's come from the Daily Mail, Chris Wheeler in the Daily Mail. This was late last night, and he says, Donny van de Beek is looking to leave Manchester United in the January transfer window. The Dutch midfielder is increasingly frustrated with his lack of game time at the club. Jesse Lingard and Fred were brought on instead of him against Villarreal. He's desperate to regain his Holland place ahead of next year's World Cup. Yeah, I think, there was already talk of that in the summer, wasn't there? Lou van Gaal sort of alluded to the fact that Donny van de Beek is going to need games. He hasn't played a lot of football at Manchester United. He's played a bit, but he's not had many starts, has he? And I think his record in the Premier League is even worse. Is it something like 4 starts or something in the Premier League? So he's obviously not had a lot of starts there, not what he would have expected or wanted. When we bought him in, I think he was our biggest signing that summer. So a lot of people thought, okay, or he probably expected himself, we're going to come in now and I'm going to play a big part of Manchester United. And he hasn't really done that. I think he's had like 20 appearances in total in the Premier League, which is, when you consider now that any of them are starts as well, it's not great, is it? So you can understand his frustrations. And I think this season was going to be, the season that he was going to kick on or get a chance, and it hasn't really happened. Now, it's a bit of a weird one with Donny van de Beek, and I don't like to sit on the fence with this and don't like to say, don't know. But I've said this ever since we signed him. I don't know a lot about him. I saw him a few times for Ajax in the Champions League. Didn't see a lot of him for Ajax in the Eredivisie, or whatever you call it. Eredivisie, is it? So I don't know a lot about him, and I know there's a lot of people out there on socials and other people who say like they do, and they've seen him in his mint and all this other stuff. My only judgment of Donny van de Beek comes from what I've seen in the Manchester United shirt. Now, he hasn't had a lot of opportunities. I know that. He hasn't had a lot of starts, but he has had some. He has played some games for Manchester United, and when he's played for Manchester United, I think he's done okay in some of them, not so great in others. I look at the Leicester games that he played in. He started, I think, against Leicester in the league at Old Trafford and in the FA Cup away at the King Power, and I thought he did okay, but I don't think he's done anything where I'm like, oh, he's amazing. Oh, he's the answer to all our problems. I think he's just sort of all right. And I think that's the problem is when you look at his best position, is it probably in the similar position to someone like Bruno, perhaps? Is that the issue? Because some people are saying he can play in the 6. I think he's spoken earlier. I think he's on Bruno Fernandes' podcast, Steve, of course, as well, where he said he can play as a 6, I think, and he's mentioned that in the past. But is that his best position? Is he good enough in the 6 to do that job in the Premier League? I'm not so sure, but I know there's a lot of people, and I'm going to get into some of your comments here, who feel very passionately that Donny van de Beek should be starting for Manchester United, that he's the answer. And I'm again a little bit unsure myself because I haven't seen as much of him as perhaps some of you guys are. Maybe you're judging that off what you've seen from him in a Manchester United shirt. I'm going to get into some of the comments because it's quite a sort of heated debate. Matthew Sargent says Donny van de Beek at Man United is now leaving. C. Jones says Donny Van does nothing. Matthew Sargent again says Cavani came off the bench on Wednesday and look what his impacts had. Basically forced himself into a starting spot. I like Donny, but he's never done that, has he? LVLO says Van de Beek is overrated. Glenn F says I'm quite happy to see him go. Might help us towards getting a DM in January. John B says, Jay, I'm absolutely hooked on Scott as your podcast. Absolutely hilarious as well as open and honest. Love it. New episode soon. Yeah. Joe Smith's on that now and James Young as well. I mean, it's the funny thing is with Donny van de Beek, if he was an out-and-out 6, I think we wouldn't be having this discussion. I think everyone would be like, give him a chance because that's obviously where our issues are, but he's not. And I think, you look at it and you have to ask yourself, do someone like Michael Carrick see Donny van de Beek? Michael Carrick's one of the best sort of defensive midfielders I think we've ever seen. Judged and read the game so well. He must watch Donny van de Beek and he must be able to say that's someone who can or can't do that job for Manchester United. You'd imagine so, wouldn't you? Because that's his sort of field of expertise. So maybe he's not suited for a 6. So you say, okay, can he play as an 8 or as a 10? But then you look at our midfield and you look at the likes of Bruno and Pogba. I know he's been playing a little bit wider, Pogba, and you think, is he going to get in ahead of those? It just seems like he's sort of stuck. He's not quite good enough to be a 6, and he's not better than Bruno as a 10 or as an 8 or whatever. So, yeah, I think that's the problem with that, and it looks like his frustration is boiling over. There was some talk, I've seen it as well, about this chewing gum incident. It says it in the article. The furious Dutchman showed his frustration by taking a piece of chewing gum out of his mouth and hurling it into the technical area where Solskjaer and his assistant, Mike Phelan, was standing. I saw that clip and I wasn't so sure, to be honest with you. I don't know if it was deliberate or if it even, I don't know. It just seemed to be just one of those things. I'm not looking too much into chewing gum gate. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Obviously, he could potentially move on in January. Let's not forget, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer isn't averse to selling players he signed. Sold Dan James. Dan James got a lot of games under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, especially compared to Donny van de Beek. And he moved him on when the price was right, and the write-off came in. He might be keeping hold of him because maybe if Paul Pogba goes in the summer, he's looking at him potentially being a successor to Paul Pogba. Who knows? But it's obviously a relationship which seems to be souring, and that sort of souring is spilling over publicly because you're seeing these sort of signs now with the footage we've seen from the game against Villarreal that Donny van de Beek isn't happy. Loads of people in the comments. I'll try and get through some of them because I know you obviously all got an opinion on it. 3FHW says the blame is on the scouting team and Ollie for greenlighting the signing when he doesn't rate him and there's no space for in the squad. As Abusa Ismail says, wait for Pogba. I think that's why Ollie held on to him in summer. Serious Lee says, Matic should start every Prem game and play for an hour. And then Warrior of Sparta says, why is he at the club then? Oh, yep. I mean, listen, we can debate this till the cows come home. No, other than the United coaching staff and maybe some of the players, whatever, or Van de Beek himself, know the reasons why he's not getting the games he's getting or he should be getting in those certain roles. Is it that he's just not good enough as a 6? Is it that Ollie just looks at him and says he's a 10, but I've got Bruno? Is it that he says, he can play maybe, a little bit deeper, but I've got other players that can do that, maybe Paul Pogba or whatever? I'm not so sure, but whatever the reason is, it's something that obviously needs sorting one way or the other because these stories are getting, they're getting more frequent. We had one yesterday where it was like the thing about the footage of him. Now today, it's stories in the papers that he's prepared to make another effort to leave the club in January. I imagine there'll be suitors for him as well because he's still only young. He's obviously had a good spell of it. for Ajax. Just unfortunate that as well he got injured before the Euros. I felt that was his real chance to put himself, not in the shot window, but back in the limelight and show Ollie what he's about. I think had he done well in the Euros, then it maybe could have forced the issue. But he obviously got injured, didn't play, so wasn't able to use that as any sort of springboard for either a move or for more game time at Manchester United. So, as always, we'll keep you posted with anything else on Donny Debate, whether he's going to go, whether he's going to stay, what is going to happen with him. We'll have to wait and see because, as I said earlier, I've not seen loads of him, but he's obviously a good player, and there's a lot of people out there who rate Donny Debate and want to see him starting for Manchester United, and he's obviously not getting those opportunities at Manchester United at the minute. Another story we've got here as well is the Premier League repeat shambles. I mean, this isn't new news. We've known this, but it's worth flagging up because it's sort of been in the papers this morning. Premier League repeat shambles, in inverted commas, Man United decision that left Ole Gunnar Solskjaer furious. Now, do you remember this? After most of us tried to put this out of our memory. After the Istanbul game where we lost, I think it was the one we lost, in Turkey, and then we had that was a Wednesday, I think, evening, and then we had a kick-off, ironically, against Everton at Goodison this time, though, on the early doors at 12:30, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was fuming about it, and he said, we were set up to fail. I said to you before, I want to talk about the kick-off time. They set up the boys to fail. He then went on to say, we've got Luke Shaw injured today because we've been to Turkey. We've played loads of games already this season. We've been to Turkey on a Wednesday night, back in Thursday morning, and we're playing Saturday in a lunchtime kickoff. It's an absolute shambles. And then he went on to praise the team because they won. But yeah, I look at it and I think it is a joke that we're playing Wednesday night, Saturday morning. The only sort of thing I will say about it that's a slight improvement on the last time it happened when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wasn't happy is the fact that this game, the game in the Champions League, was obviously in Manchester. It wasn't in Turkey, so we didn't have to travel from Turkey. So that makes a little bit of a difference. But I can see the point where you'd be a bit annoyed at that. But especially when they said they weren't going to do that. I think the Premier League or I think the powers that be, is it the Premier League or whatever, said we weren't going to do that anymore. And then obviously they are doing. And it'll be, flagged up even more so if we don't get a win against Everton, I'm sure. Also on the looking ahead to the Everton game, in terms of penalties, the penalty thing is just, I thought we'd sorted this penalty issue. Do you remember when we had all the drama when it was Marcus, then it was Pogba, and then Pogba missed against Wolves, and then Marcus went back on him and missed against Palace, and I think Gary Neville was blaming Pogba for Marcus missing against Palace. I mean, it was just annoying one here. It was just like this penalty gate and all this nonsense and arguing about penalties and who's taking the penalties. And then we had the game against Norwich, I think, where Marcus and Andy Martial missed. Bruno comes in, scores loads of penalties. One of the most consistent penalty takers on the planet. Happy days. Finally, we've got rid of this penalty issue. We've got someone we can rely on at a good time as well, because we were getting a lot of penalties at the time because of VAR and whatnot. Then he's missed against Villa. If you're going to miss, that's how you miss, isn't it? Spectacular miss. So now there's this talk, obviously, with a certain number 7 that's there, who's got a pretty decent record with penalties. Is he going to become the new penalty taker? And there's a couple of stories regarding this, and I'll just sort of try and unpick it. And it's basically Bruno Fernandes had said that, I think he told BT Sport, I was on penalties, but we didn't get one. The manager will decide before the game who takes it. So it seems that, he said to Bruno for that one, you're the penalty taker. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said, you're the penalty taker. Which makes me think, though, okay, if Ronnie's starting and Bruno's starting and Ole's going, you're the penalty taker to Bruno, is that not make Bruno the penalty taker for the Premier League game as well? Why, unless something changes, he misses one or whatever. Why would next game you go, okay, for this game, Ronnie, you're the penalty taker, Bruno, you're not. It doesn't seem to make much sense to me that it would change. I think, okay, Ollie's saying before the game, yep, you're on penalties, he's fine, but would he change that? I think you'd have a set penalty taker. I personally think Bruno Fernandes has got the right to carry on taking penalties. If he carries on missing, then that can change. But I think 21 out of 23 is a very, very good record. You remember when Pogba was on penalties that season? I think he scored, was it 8 out of 11? That one season when he was on them. So it wasn't, that impressive. Whereas you look at Bruno Fernandes, to miss 2 out of 23 I personally think he should stay on penalties until it changes. Glenn F says, Jay, when a City played Tuesday night playing this weekend after us, so Ollie is right to be annoyed. Well, he says to be peed off. I'm not sure actually when but obviously they played on Tuesday night. They're not going to be playing, earlier than we are. So I get it. It is annoying, but I've just given up on hoping for anything from the Premier League or whatever when it comes to fixtures. I think they just make it up as they go along, and then we always seem to end up with the short end of the straw. I think that's your lot. I'll just go through a couple of the comments actually before we wrap up. King says, hard getting up at 4 a.m. just to witness McFred. Lewis Gnome says, I'd leave him on pens. He won't miss again like that. Yeah, I'd leave him on, and then we can see how he gets on as well. And if he carries on scoring like he was doing before that, then there won't be an issue. And if he does miss, then at least we know we've got someone reliable who can come in the shape of Cristiano Ronaldo. Obviously, it's the Everton game. We're going to be looking ahead to the Everton game later on today, and that'll be up later on as well. We'll also have Howson's Brew, or The Brew, I should say, as it's now been retitled, later on this evening as well. And tomorrow we'll have the watch along, we'll have the fan cams, we'll have all that stuff. So make sure as well, if you're not doing, you check out all the merch on paddockmerch.com and give us a subscribe, right? I want to get to 700,000 subscribers by the end of the season. I think we're on about 608,000. So we need about 92,000, is that right? Maths, see, got it all up here. To go. So let's do this. We can do this just in time for United to win the lot, yeah. So I've been Jay Motty. This has been The Paper Talk. Thanks for watching.